How was everyone this morning?
Good. I don't have a Utopia Fiber shirt to wear.
We need to fix that.
Oh.
We need to fix that.
Yep.
Challenge accepted. We'll get you one.
Yeah. In the old days, it used to be like, go ahead, Raj.
I was to say, you don't get a lot for being a board member, but we have occasional swag items. So the socks have been popular. If you need some socks, the Utopia socks are famously ugly green, but they're great. That's why we like them, is because they stand out. And then we've got some shirts and things too.
Yeah,
we,
and we
appreciate
might not,
the time that board members put in, but
yeah, and we might not
ways
have them all in stock at the same time. So Roger, don't overpromise. We can get them ordered though.
Do we have a quorum, Krista?
Pretty sure we do. I'm adding it right now.
Recording in progress.
Yes, we do.
Okay, well, very good. Why don't we just jump into the meeting? And good morning, everyone. Thank you for. Can you hear that feedback?
I think we got it fixed now.
Okay, I didn't know if it was on my end or yours, but anyway, good morning, everyone, and thank you for taking time this morning to join the UIA board meeting call, and hope you're all well and your families and loved ones. The agenda seems to be fairly straightforward unless Roger throws any curves in it this morning, but should be pretty simple and move forward. So we have a set of minutes we want to approve first from August 9th, 2021. Are there any suggested additions or deletions to those minutes that anyone has? If not, I'll be happy to entertain a motion regarding those minutes.
I'll make a motion that we approve the minutes of August 9th, 2021. This is Nicole.
Okay, thank you, Nicole. Is there a second?
I'll second that, Jason.
Okay, thank you, Jason. All in favor of the motion and the second to approve the minutes of August 9th, 2021, say aye.
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 Was there anyone opposed? Okay, very good, thank you. Next item is a financial update by Laurie. Good morning, Laurie, good to see you.
Good morning. The financial update, what I've included in the packet is a budget to actual statement for UIA. Revenues, the budget for 2022 is about 29 million. To date, as of September 30th, we have 7.3 million in revenue, so we're 25% of budget, which is about right for September 30. The same would be true for operating expenses. We're at 25%. Under revenues related to network expansion, we do have the proceeds from the Syracuse debt issuance, 22 million, that we have not yet included in the budget. We haven't had a budget opening yet to bring that revenue in. So we have that money to spend on the Syracuse project. Contribution from restricted bond funds. Basically, this is money that is sitting with the trustee from proceeds of prior debt issuances. We have drawn down that fund by about $16 million, so we're halfway through that money. And on the expansion side, so far we have built $16.6 million of network expansion. We're halfway through the year, so we still have the 16 million that you see above to spend on network expansion, plus the 20 some odd million for Syracuse. Overall, UIA looks on track. We will probably be about 40% hopefully that may be optimistic, but 40% of the way through the Syracuse project by the end of the fiscal year, 50% through the Pleasant Grove project. We will have essentially, most of the UIA Utopia footprint built out. We may be using some cash reserves to do that. We have about $6 million left in our UIA construction fund. So we're doing well. Most of the construction from this point forward is going to be in the partner cities. And at some point soon, we will need to look at another issuance of UIA bonds. Sizing that to the right amount, making sure that we're using the right amount of our own cash reserves, and determining how much we want to leverage with debt.
I think we're thinking, is that January, February timeframe?
Right. Yeah. That we
Approximately.
probably want to go out for some more UIA general funds for additional expansion and installation in the UIA Utopia footprint, and to finish up those footprints in mostly West Valley and Murray.
Yeah, so the last time we did the UIA bond, it was the big one for the growth. That was still footprints that needed to be built. There's still a little bit. Cities continue to grow, and we keep getting lots and lots of customers. So he had said then that it wouldn't be the last bond, it'd probably be the last really big one though. So we'd have incrementals as we have new footprints and new areas coming online, additional installations and things like that. So we haven't sized that yet. Again, we have unrestricted cash that we can use for some of our costs to grow and expand. And when that balance gets too big, it makes sense to use that fund. But at some point, we're going to want to bond for just that incremental growth. So don't be surprised by that, but I don't know. Again, we don't know the amount, but I would guess it's something probably like $10 to $20 million as opposed to like a $50 million, major expansion or something. It just kind of depends how long we want that money to last for, if that's going to cover our installations and expansion for, 6 months, or do we want it to be 2 years worth, and based on what the rates are, cost of money and all that. We'll have that, we'll nail that down as we get closer to when we need it.
Are there any questions on the budget to actual for UIA? Okay, the next
Lori,
slide is that Alex?
Yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry. I'll hold my question. Go ahead. Okay.
The recurring revenue graph continues to look phenomenal. We are bringing in $2.8 million per month. It looks like we will, if things continue on the same pathway, we will reach $3 million per month by February 2022. A pretty significant benchmark. UIA is $2.2 million of that monthly revenue. Utopia, $671,000. The next graph is the 12-month moving average of the recurring revenue increase month over month. It's settling in at about $40,000. Sometimes, one thing that is difficult to measure is the prepaid. So when occasionally we still have customers asking if they can purchase the fiber outright. We don't advertise it. When we get pushback, we do offer that. So that a lot of times when new footprints will open, we'll see a handful of people that want to purchase the installation rather than lease it. I think that's probably the reason for that jump there in the fall through the winter of 2020. But we are settling in on month-over-month increase in revenue of about $40,000. Again, we always talk about how excited we were when we were seeing that number at $20,000 per month. So that's pretty significant progress. And then the next graph is the UIA revenue versus bond obligation. So this is monthly recurring revenue over our bond obligations. A lot of these bonds, as you know, are still in the capitalized interest period. I have on the graph, those that have a solid line are out of the capitalized interest period. Those that still have markers are still being serviced by CAPI. But we have about a $600,000 margin between our recurring monthly revenue and our bond obligations. That's adequate to pay operating expenses. And with the franchise fee pledge that we've never had to call on for UIA, we are easily maintaining 1.5 times debt service coverage, which is what helps us to maintain our positive bond ratings. So looking really good. That single dot at the very top is the newest bond issuance for Syracuse. And that's all I have. I'd be happy to answer questions.
Laurie, this is Alex. I was going to ask previously, and I don't know if you can answer it, or maybe Kim could jump in, or Roger, but do we see with all the good news that's happening, and thank you for all the great work the staff's doing, do we see anything on the horizon, either in terms of the economy or competitive pressures, new entrants into the market, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, anything that would take us off this course, particularly that may be out of our control? You know, we don't, anything like that anybody sees?
Yeah, I mean, from my perspective, everything has been good. You know, the trends towards remote work and remote education and different applications that use a lot of broadband have all gone in our favor, and fiber continues to be the most long-term, future-proof way to do it. You know, we've seen others, as far as like growth and expansion into other cities, and we have seen other projects, I would say more competition in that space, as we see companies like Strata trying to get into the fiber to the home space. Obviously, Google Fiber has been on and off many, many times, and most recently they're on doing new city partnerships. It's still in their experimental category of business, and so we don't know if that's ever going to become part of their normal alphabet or if that's going to stay in their other bets. But for the time being, they are growing pretty rapidly. It's not always a problem for us. We operate in a different space in a lot of ways. When we look at cities like Provo and Salt Lake, even, which were the first two Google Fiber cities, we still do very well in those cities. And what I mean by that is our relationships with our service providers and the state and the county and schools and all of these other things that we do still bring a lot of business to us that aren't met by Google or any other provider. And so we do grow our revenues and our relationships and connections in those Google cities. So it's not from a revenue perspective, it's not the worst thing in the world to have them go after the residential and we do everything else. And so we haven't actually seen any problem, a negative impact to us. It may just be less fiber to the home expansion opportunity for us, but it's still been a pretty good situation. So technology has been in our favor, even in our cities. I'll show you the take rate trends in just a minute on my network update, but everything's been going very, very well, and even in our existing areas, take rates and revenues continue to grow. Kim, did you have anything else you want to comment, or anyone else on the team?
I think you pretty much covered it. I don't think we're seeing anything right now, but we're always on the lookout of what the trends are and how to combat them if they're coming our way. So, but yeah, no, I agree with you, Roger, in your assessment.
So thank you. As a follow-up to that, are there any, as particularly as staff has looked at this internally, are there any sectors of the business, I won't use the right words, I'm sure, but any sectors of the business or potential sectors, or from an economic perspective, that we ought to be looking to either try to expand in or take advantage in? I know, for example, like in cities, one of the things at least we talk about is kind of a three-legged stool. We want to be strong residentially, commercially, and with job creation. And when you have a downturn, then you can weather the storm pretty well because you have a balanced, diversified, varied economic foundation, if you will. I'm not suggesting we do, but is there anything in UIA or Utopia that we have, two of the three legs or one of the three legs, or we have a weak leg or something, any area where we could strengthen that against pressures, wherever they may come from and whatever they may look like, it would be important for us? Or do you feel like we're pretty well grounded in terms of the economic opportunities that are there, and we just need to expand those, grow them, as opposed to, add a new one or something, if that makes sense? Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, in our survey that we did recently, it kind of reinforced the thought that we're doing really, really well among our more premium customers, and could probably stand to do better among our low-income households. It is hard for someone who's paying $30 a month for a DSL connection to switch to a $65 fiber connection, and I think that's something that we've not done as well as we'd hoped to with that. And now we've seen uptick in that take rate, but it's still a little bit of a financial obstacle for low-income households. Now, what's helped is that there's a federal emergency broadband benefit that's come in, and that offers a $30 a month subsidy. We have a couple of our service providers that are eligible for that, so they're able to sell their service for $35 on top of the $30 Utopia connection, and then the subscriber gets $30 rebated back off of that. So that helps lower the cost, but it's still not, we're not seeing as much uptick in take rate as we would hope with that. So we're hoping to bring more attention to those types of programs, and potentially even be involved in some of them internally to offer, have an offering that picks up more of the low-income households. But that's a big, portion of our cities that we're not doing as well as we'd hope to. And again, I don't want to make it sound like we're not doing well. We are getting more and more customers in all of our footprints. It's not like it's only happening in our more wealthy neighborhoods versus our lower income neighborhoods. Take rates are growing everywhere, but certainly, we see anything short of 100% take rate, and we're like, why would anybody have something else? This is the best. And we want to do what we can to, reach out and try to get as many, residents and businesses in our cities on to benefit from the service.
Kim, do you have anything else?
No, I don't. I think Roger's right. And we're investigating some ways to get into some of those areas and to hit different demographics. So we have new ad campaigns to try to get some of that, to kind of get the interest going. And they should be launching soon. So we're always like pivoting to see where we can where we have a weak spot and where we can capitalize that on a little bit more. So Roger hit it. With the EBB program, I think we're going to see some more uptick in that as the federal government gets more involved in advertising that. That was one of the biggest flaws of the EBB program, is that they advertised it to the providers, but the providers weren't given any money to advertise it to the end user customer. So I know that the federal government is looking at that as one of the biggest downfalls of the EBB when they launched it. So, but that is about it for me.
Well, and the other problem with the EBB program was, hey, we're going to offer this benefit for a few months and then who knows? And so providers didn't want to go out there and spend the money and install a customer and get them hooked up. And then with that benefit leaving, they would just lose that customer anyways. And it's like, why do we do all this effort to get someone connected to it just going to cancel? They've come back, and part of this latest infrastructure bill, I think, is one of the parts of that, if that thing gets through and passed, is to do much more, but it's still not perpetually funded. So they're hoping to fund it perpetually, but there's not really a revenue place to point to fund it for forever. So the federal government is trying to come up with ways to offer a more long-term solution. And this latest version is better than the first version, but still has a long ways to go before providers really see this as a long-term partnership to be able to offer lower income products. You know, we're certainly interested in that. If cities have funds available to offer a subsidy or something like that for our low-income households, we're interested in that. There are ways that kind of already plug into our model here. You know, one thing that we thought of is if we were able to just pay for, you know, we still have a prepay, right? If a customer comes in and they prepay their connection, they effectively get a $30 a month discount perpetually. And so if there is a program out there where there's money available and we could make that available to lower income households to essentially just prepay their connection for them or partially subsidize it, we love doing that. You know, we haven't really come in and said, hey, we are in a position to just lose money and offer services to these low-income households, but as money and other programs become available, we'd love to take advantage of those. And certainly more customers on the system helps us to pay debts and alleviate the burden that we still represent to the cities on the Utopia side of things.
Okay, thank you. I'm sorry to take so much time on that to the board. Any other board members have questions regarding the finances? Okay. Thank you, Lori, Kim, and Roger. So the next item is a network update. I believe, Roger, you're going to do that.
Yeah, that's just where we like to go in and talk about how things are going statistically here. Try to a little more viewable here. So this address availability, again, is the build out of the network. Every address that can get service from the system. This doesn't include Idaho Falls, but you know we broke 140,000 addresses, which represents about 2 to 3 times that in population. So we continue to make this system available. When you see these lines go up over here by city, that's where you can tell where we're building. There's a couple of anomalies here and there where county records get duplicated and then we unduplicate them or things like that. So it dips at points. It obviously doesn't actually dip, messes up some of our numbers. But generally these charts represent where we're building and growing. So you can see, you know, Clearfield just kicked off down here pretty aggressively with this blue line back down here. And then you see a lot of growth in West Valley City, that's our largest city, and we've been finishing up a lot of footprints in that city lately. With the current project, really it's Orem that's being finished out right now, Murray, West Valley City, and I think that's about it. There's a couple little pockets here. We have a little pocket in Payson that still, you know, we get tied up in permits and things, but other than a little pocket, it's completed. So those cities I mentioned are the ones that there's still a significant amount of construction going on. But really, as we wrap those up, that will represent the build out of UIA and the Utopia cities from a fiber to the home perspective. And then other than that, it's just kind of as those cities grow and have opportunities, we'll finish those out. And then on top of that, we have the city partnerships. So obviously we already completed Morgan and West Point. Clearfield is wrapping up. We just released another footprint there this last week. I think we only have maybe it's one more or 1.5. Again, we get little areas that get tied up in permits, but things are going really well there. And Syracuse and Pleasant Grove have both kicked off recently, and construction's underway. So those are going really well. We have several other cities, I'd say as many as 10, that are in some level of conversation with us and potentially partnering with them. So I would expect that we probably have some partnerships coming to the table here. I do want to make mention of a partnership that's actually going before the Utopia board today. This is a little bit unique because normally our growth and expansion comes to UIA, and that's because UIA acts as the finances these projects, and also gets revenue and pays off the bonds and all that. We've talked about it a little bit, is Idaho Falls. They show up here in this red line on this subscriber by city line. You can see they're up over 2,000 subscribers on that system. Idaho Falls is not a Utopia or UIA owned project. It's where a city decided they wanted to do their own project, and we kind of did this one as just kind of a joint. It was a joint powers authority agreement or an interlocal or something, just with
the equivalent of an interlocal, but equivalent powers agreement.
Where we basically just said, hey, if you'd like us to help get your project up and running, and they approached us and wanted us to help out, we decided we could do that, and we would charge them for that. And so we get, depending on the customer, we get somewhere between $10 and $15 a month in revenue per customer. We thought, as they grow and expand, we're probably going to have to staff to that need a little bit. We still haven't hired a single position relative to Idaho Falls. We've just been able to do NOC services and network engineering, everything with our current team. The local roles happen there in Idaho Falls, paid for and employed by Idaho Falls. And so that partnership kind of started out as a more kind of like an experiment that's gone very well. And so with over 2,000 subscribers, our revenue would be over $20,000 a month from that type of a partnership. And that project's just getting started. So it's represented a really good opportunity for Utopia to grow its revenues and doing the same thing that it does normally. So the partnership being considered on the Utopia board today is a partnership with Bozeman Fiber, which is a similar structure. It's basically where Utopia and UIA take on no risk. There's no debt. We're simply acting as an operational partner. There's a revenue structure on the management of the build and design of the project up front, and then there's also an operating fee that we charge for the provisioning, the systems, the monitoring, and then all the local resource of technicians, repair, owning it, maintaining it, all of that is on them. So similar to Idaho Falls, it looks like a really good opportunity. Stands to be a decent sized project. I gotta remember, it's about 25,000. It's growing very, very fast, depending on when you say what it is today and what it will be in the next 2 to 3 years. But in the range of about 25,000 households. And so, with a decent take rate, that could easily be 10 to 11,000 subscribers, from which we get a pretty good revenue. And it's a nice place for Utopia. We haven't had, you look at our revenue charts, and revenues at Utopia have grown, but not very aggressively. And it's a pretty easy place for us to, utilize the Utopia team to grow some revenues, to help other communities, kind of expand the reach of open access fiber in the region, while also not taking on any risk to the organization and any new debt related to it. So anyways, it's an update there. Just, again, that's an item on the Utopia agenda, but wanted you to be aware of it. On the residential side of the charts here, just to show that up, this is subscribers by city. We had a little bit of blip when we changed systems here back in January, but that's largely kind of flattened out here to where we can trust these latest numbers. And the take rates are good. They kind of jump around here a little bit. That's why it's important to look back at the actual subscriber charts are actually going up, but the import of addresses from counties and things like that messes up a little bit on the percentages. But the percentages are actually looking very good in the cities. So I'm just going to jump over here really quick to show that. These are take rates in our cities, residential take rates. And so the latest chart being right here, and you can see if you look, trend these things over time, they're going up, and there's a few exceptions where they don't go up. And that's not because the customers went down, it's because usually there's new development or new footprint or some import of addresses from the county that caused that to go up. But the take rates are very, very good, continue to go up across the board, with some exceptions like Clearfield. Obviously, we're just getting started there. And then Midvale, some of these are asterisked where we have just built a whole bunch in those cities, and that pushes those take rates down. And you look down here and say, yeah, Midvale used to be 23 and now we're 16, but that's because we have so much of that city that has just been released and hasn't had a couple of years for the marketing and sales to ramp up. So anyways, there's a bunch of numbers and data and charts. We sent out these charts to the board. If for some reason you have not gotten them, please reach out and make sure I've got your right email address. I'm trying to send those out regularly so you know what's going on here, but it's all very good. Lots of new customers coming on the system. Satisfaction is good. Our churn is something that we're always keeping an eye on. That's customers leaving the system for some reason. Again, to Alex's question before, are we seeing anything that would be harming us or making us worry about things? And certainly our ability to keep our customers once they're on the system is a very strong indicator that what we do is good and valued and important to our customers and residents, and they're staying on. So, we could be adding and growing and building and then losing customers, and you'd see that in our charts and in our revenues. And the good thing is that they're staying on, and we're taking care of them, and really happy with how things are going. One other item of update, not to get too much in on this one, is we want to keep it fairly limited in a public meeting. You may have seen that Utopia has filed suit with American Fork. We've shared some related to that. I'd mostly just refer you to the documents that we've sent out. If you've not seen those documents, again, reach out to me, but this is basically a summary, of this is the position that we have on it and why we feel this way. It's kind of an unfortunate situation where we went in and had a great partnership with the city and built quite a bit in the city, and we're fulfilling orders and contracts for schools and businesses, and suddenly got the rug pulled out from underneath us. They canceled the franchise agreement, wouldn't issue permits, and it's a pretty big negative impact to us to have that happen. And if it was just to us, it probably wouldn't be that big a deal. But this is a pretty important area for our service providers, as well as the other partners like the school system. And so, this was something we felt like we had a pretty clear legal path to follow. Cities, we believe it's pretty clear in federal law that there's protections that basically say that cities can't, discriminate based on coverage or provider or various reasons. And we're like, hey, this is obvious. All we've ever asked for from the city is just the same terms as any other provider in the city, and that none of this would happen if that's all we could get. It's just the same equal treatment as a CenturyLink or Comcast, and there's a lot of messy stuff, I guess, internal with the city and feelings and other issues that have caused them to take a very anti-Utopia position. And so we're fighting, for our interests there. And it's, we've stated it many times that it's kind of a last resort with the city. We've been very open, have had an attitude of trying to come up with a compromise or solutions. We've proposed many things that might mitigate their concerns, and they've been very contrary to a letter that they sent, which does not at all capture the reality of the situation. They've been very, very stubborn and unresponsive. This was us trying to meet, trying to get responses, trying to get a response on permits, and just simply a lack of response and unwillingness to work with us or even communicate. And so, again, it's the last resort. We hope it gets resolved. And it would be very, very easy for them to resolve this very, very quickly. they're just kind of digging their heels in. Any questions related to that? I mean, we're not in a closed session or anything, so, and certainly don't want to make too many representations in a public meeting related to that, but if you have any questions, if you get any inquiries from anybody, feel free to send them to me and Josh, our legal counsel, or our general counsel. He's obviously on top of it. You know, again, I just reiterate, we're pretty confident in our position and our claims against the city. Again, the intention is just fairness and to go after and support our partners.
Okay, thank you, Roger. Are there any, a question back on the first part of your presentation, Roger. Are there any communities, and this isn't in a negative context at all, it's just in a context of any, again, are there any opportunities for improvement? Are there any of the communities where the take rates could be, if you look at it internally, the take rates could be improved and our reach could be improved absent some things that we as cities are doing, whether it's our permitting process, whether it's political challenges, whether it's lack of communication, you know, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And again, I don't ask that to say, well, you know, Layton's causing problems or Brigham's causing problems or anything like that, but to say, are there little things that if we could improve, working collectively, that would help those take rates expand even further and benefit the residents and the communities, and that may just take somebody saying, yeah, we're willing to change our approach, or let's talk about it, or what have you, anything like that, that either from staff's perspective or from board members' perspective, anything that you hear your officials or your public works people, or et cetera, say, well, that darn Utopia, you know, they're frustrating us, or those kind of things that we could knock down and make sure everybody's on the same page. Again, I'm not sure if that makes sense, but I'd be curious if there is that out there, and then what do we do to go solve them?
Yeah, you know, certainly the position and communications from a city can go a long way to support take rate and revenue and subscribers on the system. And I would say largely there's been amazing progress there. I mean, I'd say that, you know, cities and even, you know, elected officials or others that may have in the past been a real problem have really come around and been, you know, considered, you know, both the needs of their community, but also the needs of the organization, and realize that this is you know, there's really no reason to oppose it or badmouth it. I mean, I feel like it's changed dramatically. It's not to say that, you know, if we could pick our elected officials, we wouldn't hope for maybe some changes here and there. but those, you know, even those that I'd say have been problematic have really kind of turned the corner to a large extent across the, you know, across all the cities. I think we've had a lot of positive swing or momentum. Certainly, it's not a great time politically to oppose a broadband project. It's been something that people have needed, and it's become a popular topic. I mean, we go on these whether it's a Facebook group or a Nextdoor posting or something like that, and the communities themselves are speaking up in favor of it. You know, maybe I shouldn't say this. I should probably come in and say, hey, we need a lot more support from the cities. We really need to get out there in front and promote this and that. But, you know, generally, I think we've seen a lot of that happening, and more doesn't hurt. You know, certainly, you know, any opportunities to let the communities know that the cities are behind this and support the service, and that it goes back into those communities. Again, we've been able to do some things. You know, cities have not been billed at all for like those air quality sensors. We've done those wildfire camera detections systems in our cities, and not charge the cities for those installations, because we've been able to, you know, basically say, hey, we're reinvesting, you know, resources of Utopia to mostly it's people and time, but you know, we're able to invest into our communities with this network. And every customer and every revenue that we get helps us with that. Now, obviously, we're focusing that towards wanting to cover more debt relief. But there's a lot of benefits to the communities as more and more people come and sign up and get on the system. So the message is, from my perspective, I'm really appreciative of all the work that's already happening from our board members and from the city staffs and elected officials to support Utopia. We certainly always would appreciate more, though. But I can't think of anything specific we'd say, hey, we really need the city to do this thing to help. Unless Kim or Josh or Laurie or Jeff, if any of you guys, Krista, anybody have any opinions or ideas on that, no, they don't want to speak, and I speak too much. So Kim's probably.
Okay. How about, thank you, Roger. Any board members, again, if there are issues, you don't have to speak to them directly, but do any of you even have a sense that there's any of these little minor things that could be addressed in your own communities with, again, you don't have to necessarily talk about what they are at this point, but are there any issues out there that we ought to be at least aware of in terms of a general concern? Okay, doesn't sound like it. Well, thank you. I would encourage you, if there are, again, sometimes on the surface things appear to be good, and then maybe in a department, again, maybe a permitting process or something is people have, been offended or got their nose bent out of shape or something, or in some way. And so I would just encourage you, again, even if it's bad news, to just bring that forward. You're welcome to bring it to me or, of course, to Roger and the people and just say, hey, we've got an issue here. And then so we can go to work and try to resolve that, quietly and appropriately, just to try to keep the good things that are happening going forward. And so, that was the purpose of the question. I'm not aware of any of those issues, but things can creep in when you're dealing with people, right? And we're all people, and what's good today may be bad tomorrow. But thank you to each one of you for your support of UIA. It has changed over the years, the support in the communities, and each of you have been a big part of that. And the recent success. And so we thank you. I thank you for that. And ask you to continue to be a good influence, positive influence for Utopia in your community. So it's benefiting and blessing a lot of people in the state, and help us to do well financially. So thank you. I think that's the end of the agenda. Are there any other issues that any member of the board would like to raise, just by way of information or a question or a concern or a comment?
Alex, this is Jason. I was going to ask Roger, talking about Bozeman, Montana, is it exactly the same deal as what we're doing in Idaho Falls? Have any of the terms changed that we're talking about with this deal compared to that?
So the terms in Idaho Falls were very loose. I mean, our agreement was kind of, well, we'll do stuff and we'll charge you for it. And so that one was kind of a handshake evolving, because we didn't really know where to draw lines of responsibility and costs and all that. And they've been excellent partners in that. And so really the Bozeman contract is, a much more formal version of what we are doing in Idaho Falls. The lines are very similar, but we've never actually drawn the lines that strictly in Idaho Falls. So it's very similar in that sense. One difference, though, to take note of is it's a little bit removed from the city itself. And what I mean by that is, in Idaho Falls, it's a partnership with Idaho Falls Fiber, or is it the city?
The city.
Is it the city? Yeah. Directly? Okay.
That's
Idaho Falls has their own power, and that's who we deal with on a daily basis, but the contract is with the city. Bozeman Fiber is actually a not-for-profit that was created by the city and the school district and a couple others. I think the economic development directors on the board. They've got several board members from the city, and so they're a little bit removed from the city itself, and the financing of the project is actually being done with the county. So Gallatin County is the conduit for the financing, and yet they've got stakeholders with the city and school. I actually think there's a lot of benefit in that because they have a lot of the anchors in the area that are very tightly involved in the organization. So Bozeman Fiber is doing the financing, and they're on the hook for all the local resources. They'll be staffing all of that. But as far as we're concerned, the structure of that agreement with Bozeman Fiber is, it's really capturing, I would say, almost identically what we're doing in Idaho Falls from an operational perspective. I can't think of any exceptions to that. Is there any obvious things I'm missing that you can think of? One. So again, you know, if we do similarly well, and I think one difference is that they're going all in. I mean, they're doing a bond for as much as $65 million. You know, the actual construction of the project to be about $58 million. That'll build out the whole city over the next 2 to 3 years. Idaho Falls has taken a much slower approach of, let's do a footprint. Okay, let's see how that goes. Now let's do another footprint. And so they've only done a couple of footprints in the city. I think they're ramping up 3 or 4 more. That's still been decent revenue growth for us in that system. But I would expect Bozeman Fiber to get much bigger, much quicker because it's going all in on one phase of a project to build out the whole city. If you've not been to Bozeman, it's actually it's a very good city for this. The demographics are very strong there. It's growing very, very fast, which gives us a lot of open trench opportunity. Obviously, we're not doing that so much as Bozeman Fiber will be doing it. We're just kind of doing the designs of this is how you do it and the standards for construction and how that all comes together. But the overall economics of the project look really good because of the cost and the demographics and they have service providers up there already. They're running an open access network as a middle mile network right now with providers on it. So it's not like it's starting from scratch. So there's a lot of pluses on that partnership that we're pretty excited about. We may need to go back to Idaho Falls and say, hey, you see this really good detailed agreement we have with Bozeman? We should probably formalize what we're doing in Idaho Falls with that, because again, that one's kind of been, you know, not a position of exposure or anything. It's been a good partnership, but it's just been a, you know, pretty loose on we'll do stuff and we'll bill you for that and try to, you know, get our costs and then some. Obviously, the economy of scale is our biggest benefit there because we're able to provide services with our existing resources. So we go, you know, generally, if you look at Utopia and say, well, we have about 85 employees, most of the growth from 5 years ago is not actually new cost. It's been the insourcing of things we used to contract out with utility locating, but there's been some growth, maybe 10 to 15 of those in new positions as we've grown the organization. But we've gone from about 10,000 customers. Well, maybe I guess it was 14,000 when I started back here to about 43,000 now with very little growth. And these new partnerships in Idaho Falls and Bozeman, we're looking at those and saying, hey, those are opportunities for, you know, right now it's only 20,000 or so coming out of Idaho Falls, but that has the potential of being 100,000 or more. And Bozeman is 100,000 or more as well as it gets to size. We do a handful of those projects. That becomes, you know, a really nice ability for us to grow revenues with very little growth in staff and cost at Utopia. Again, what do we do with those revenues? That's more ability for us to offset the debt obligations at Utopia. And it is nice that it happens at Utopia. That makes it even easier. Because that's where the debt on those original bonds are at. We still have exercises to do to offset costs between Utopia and UIA to allow Utopia to benefit more from the success that's happened at UIA. But with these Idaho Falls and Bozeman Fiber partnerships, we don't have that difficulty.
Thank you, Roger. Any other questions from the board? Okay. Well, very good. Again, thank you for your time this morning and for your involvement and just all the good you're doing. And again, have a great day and be safe and well. We'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn. This is Kyle from Midvale.
Okay, thank you, Kyle.
I'll
I'll second
second.
that.
Second, okay. I was going to say all of us will probably second it immediately. Thank you, Jason and Brenda. All in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. Okay, very good. We'll stand adjourned again. Have a great day. Thank you.
Thank you.